Cool, man. It's great to see you. It's been a minute, and it's good to see your face, man.
Yeah, man, you too. How's things?
Morale is solid. I'm kind of coming out of the lurch a little bit. I was kind of a bit in the dumps the last couple weeks.
How come?
My lady Anna, who we split and
Oh no!
at the end of last year, and we've kind of we've been living together since quarantine, and we're like best friends, which is really nice. But she's moving to California in a couple weeks, so I've been very depressed about that.
Yeah, sorry, man. Fuck.
Yeah, because it's like that impending doom kind of feeling. So it's some days are good, and then the next day is wobbly, and it all kind of comes and goes. So, how about you, man? Well, how's morale in Portland?
It's all right. It's kind of wrecked here now. Like the city's taken a beating since COVID, and then the protests. The protests are still every night for like 4 months.
No shit,
they're
still
kind of all over the city. But really, it's more like COVID has wrecked the city more than the protests have. But I don't know. Where I live, I'm kind of like out a little bit. I'm in deep southeast, so it's pretty chill out here where I am. So it's been okay. But the closer you go into like the center of the city, the kind of more wrecked it is.
Yeah. Have you seen any crazy shit personally? Any bonfires, any fireworks, explosions, M80s, dynamite at municipal buildings?
I went down, I marched a bunch in the protests the first month or so, and I went down to the courthouse a couple times, but I would always get out of there before the cops started shooting tear gas and stuff. I don't need to get tear gassed.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's super wrecked down there.
So what does it feel like for you now? Because I feel like some of these highlight videos, I don't know if you've seen All Gas No Brakes. Have you seen that YouTube channel?
Oh, I think so. Yeah. What is it? Just like car wreck and shit?
No. This young kid, he's probably like 22.
Oh, that dude. Oh, yeah.
He wears a big funny suit. He basically just goes to crazy events and protests or like political events, rowdy stuff, and he just basically holds a giant microphone in front of nutty people, and he just lets them riff.
Craziest people. Yeah.
Yeah. But so he made a highlight video out of the Portland protests, and it just made it look almost embarrassing. And granted, he pulled all the most uninformed, drunkest people into the highlight video. But how have you felt about the protests in Portland? Are you like, all right, it's time to maybe take a break for a little bit, or are you like, let's just keep fucking going?
I'm down with the protest. The thing is, like, people see footage and think the whole city's kind of overrun by it. But really, most of the protesting is just like in a couple, it's like a couple square blocks. It's not a huge part of the city.
Yeah.
There's a ton of just like tent cities and homeless camps. And just like, there's just like a bunch of trash. Like the city looks trash, but like I said, it's just because like a ton of people like lost their jobs and are just on the streets. So it's way more because of COVID. The protests aren't really wrecking the city. But like I was saying, I went down there for a while, and I was like, that's kind of enough for me. But sure,
Are you seeing like handsome hipster looking guys coming out of homeless tents now? Is it like everybody's all demographics are part of the homeless camp?
It's just kind of like all over the place. It definitely looks a little apocalyptic here right now. I'm sure it does in a lot of cities.
And how's your mental health personally? How have you been feeling?
Mine's pretty good. I have a dog who you can probably see. Who's right here. I got my dog like a year ago. Little Billy there. So he's great. Like if I didn't have him, if I was just all alone here, I think I'd kind of be going nuts. But honestly, just having the dog, just having something to like take care of and like chill with has made everything kind of okay for me.
Sure. Yeah, man. I'm actually kind of trying to get a dog myself. I just think it would really like raise my my bummer levels a little bit.
I think it absolutely would. It's just like, because dogs are they're just joyful. A dog is almost always in a good mood, and their needs are so simple. And it'll keep you on a good routine too. Like he wakes me up in the morning.
Yeah.
You spend a lot more time outside.
I often feel like with people, like dogs kind of parallel people's emotions quite a lot, but I always feel like people are like kind of yin and yang, like the 50-50, you're up, you're down, you're up, you're down. Do you really think dogs are like more just up most of the time? Or do you think they just have depressive phases we don't know about?
I mean, I've definitely seen some depressed dogs. My dog, also, he's a puppy still. He's just a year old, so he's got the lust for life still. But yeah, you definitely see some bummed out dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess just like people, all dogs are different.
There's that great built to spill lyric. Life goes on long after the thrill of living is gone. I don't know. I always laugh at that, even though it's so sad, but it's a little bit true.
Right, but he stole that from John Cougar Mellencamp.
Oh, okay.
I think is that the song on, is it on Keep It Like a Secret?
Keep It Like a Secret, one of the greats.
Yeah, so maybe all of the lyrics on that song are all taken from
You're
other
right.
songs.
I think you're right.
I think there's a Bob Dylan lyric in there.
Yep. He took.
I forget what else.
Yeah, he took all those cliche, like depressing lines and put them all in one song. Brilliant.
That's just the genius of John Cougar Mellencamp.
Yeah. Do you think Mellencamp is like bumming a lot of the time? Do you think he's kind of an emo guy, or is he down to party still?
How old was he? He's probably just like 60 or something, right?
I think he does. He looks good. I saw him in concert a year and a half ago.
Oh, really?
And he physically looks great, but he did like a unplugged version of Jack and Diane, like his coolest song. And it was shot. It was like, it was almost like he had arthritis or something. He couldn't like really play the chords in time. It was really weird. But they were all right. It's just one of those shows where couldn't tell if it was their fault, if the sound was lousy or not. But he seemed.
Where was it? It was at some arena?
It was at a theater, the Milwaukee Theater downtown, but it opened with this documentary, this mini documentary that I thought was going to be really cool, kind of chronicling Mellencamp's career. But then it was just Mellencamp just narrating it at how awesome he was. Yeah, when I came up with these lyrics after the second Grammy, it just really came to me in the night, and I woke up and I wrote it down on paper. And I don't know, he was fine. It was a little underwhelming, but what are you going to do? I think he's like 67 or something.
Right. I mean, at this point, he doesn't need to be playing guitar. Just let your guitar player, just hire someone and he can just sing.
Exactly. Yeah, he can be drinking seltzers and during the solos and stuff.
Right.
Do you think you're going to be playing shows when you're like 70?
Man, if we ever can play shows again, yeah, I would like to. You see these people like Bob Dylan or like Willie Nelson, they kind of just like, it seems like if they stop, they'll just die. So they have to just like,
right,
just keep going. You hear about people who like retire like from any job, and it's just like once they quit doing whatever it is they did their whole life, they have no reason left to live.
Yeah. I didn't mean to laugh, but that was profound and heavy and a little bit funny.
Right.
Yeah, man, because so much of mental health is tied with your physical health. It is kind of crazy.
Right. And kind of having a purpose,
Have you ever had a moment where your mental health was just kind of in the toilet and you just kept getting sick, or your physical health was affected from it?
I think usually it ties in with like drinking too much, or I feel like one kind of, you see a lot of people when their mental health suffers, they'll go to like drinking or drugs, and then it never helps. It might help for the night, but overall it's just going to make things worse.
Yeah.
And then the reverse is true too, right? Like if you're drinking all the time, your physical health is going to be terrible. Actually, it's not like I was drinking a ton, but at the like before quarantine, I was like, I was definitely drinking more than I am now. Like since like lockdown, I drink almost never, because it was something I did socially too. If I didn't see anyone, I'm not gonna like sit alone and like
right
in the house alone.
Yeah.
So I kind of gotten more. I've gotten like more healthy, I think, since lockdown, but I'm just eating all the time.
Yeah, that sounds like the inverse for a lot of people. I feel like people have been boozing harder in the quarantine.
Right.
But that's good that you got that going for you.
Yeah, it sounds depressing to me that you would be just kind of shut up in your house and you just would like drink. But I know a lot of people, have just been drinking way more.
Well, yeah, drinking solo, that's a dark place. But it's if you got people over. I remember drinking a couple lawnmowers on your porch. That was a good time pre-COVID.
Well, I just like talk. I'm just like yapping away. If I drink one beer, I can't shut up. So it's like, who am I going to talk to? I can't just talk to the dog for 6 hours.
Well, you're actually like you're pretty good at talking. You're like an interesting person to talk to. Do you know the term a punisher?
No.
I first heard it around the music industry, but it applies to life in general. It's like someone who just talks nonstop but never stops and has no self-awareness that people want them to stop, but they just keep talking at you and no one else gets to speak. That's a punisher. Right. And
I feel like you run into those people at shows a lot, and they're doing that like while a band is playing. So not only are they talking nonstop, but it's like right in your ear. Kathy and I would always talk about the person who would just come up and they'd be like spitting on your ear because they're talking so close and so loud.
Brutal.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Yeah, that's a punisher, and you do see that a lot in the music industry. And
why is that?
I think people are it's this like heightened emotional state where you're at a rock show, you're seeing a band you love. So I think if you're a fan, you're like, holy shit, like I got to talk to this band. I got to stop. I got to talk and never stop until they walk away from me.
Right, because if I stop talking, they're going to leave.
Yeah. And I think that's like a lot of that's anxiety too, where people just stop. They never stop talking because they're anxious of the silence between dialogue. Right. Yeah,
for sure.
But Spatola, who you know, he has a great term he came up with. It's an offshoot of the Punisher, and he calls it a goalie. When someone is at the merch table talking to you, and they just keep talking to you and block you from all merch sales, and then they don't buy anything. You know. Were you? Did you spend a lot of time at the merch table with the thermals, or would you just kind of like skip that part of the job?
We would at the beginning of the band, but then exactly what you're talking about, what would happen is, someone would come up and there'd be like a line of people trying to buy a record, and then one person is just monopolizing your time for so long. And then you see people start to walk away, you're like, and so we almost like, in the early days, we weren't making enough to pay someone else to do the merch, but eventually we were like, we got to get someone because us ourselves being there is kind of fucking up the whole system of the merch table, like you're talking about.
Right. Yeah. You almost need like a goal. What would be like a goalie deflector? What we could come up with a term for it. You almost need like an offensive player to just like block those people or deflect them onto like a Punisher crusader,
or just a referee blowing a whistle and being like, hey, like handing cards out back of the line.
That'd be great. God, that'd be great. I mean, I don't think anyone wants to be a Punisher. I think it's just something that no one has the guts to call them on, because that's like,
you don't want to be mean.
Yeah, you don't want to be mean. But I feel like that's like the job of your closest friends, is to call you on shit, but it's so hard to do.
Right. Yeah, I know. Like, because you're always going to want to kill the messenger in that situation, and no one, you don't want to like police your friends, because they're going to take it out on you.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to have those mini blowouts though, and then you become closer.
True. I guess if you handle it very gingerly.
Yeah. I hope I was never a Punisher. I probably was at some point. I think we all probably were at some point. I remember early on, I think the first tour I ever did, I did a tour with Rocky Vadalato. Do you know Rocky?
Oh yeah.
Is he a Portland guy? He might be a Seattle guy.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Awesome guy, but I hope I didn't punish him, because for a couple shows I was like trying to get him to sit in on one of my songs, and then he was like, yeah, man. But he was kind of lukewarm, and then I felt like I asked him like 2 or 3 times. I was like, oh fuck, I probably was a Punisher to Rocky Vadalato, but I was just a little kid. I was so excited to be there. You know what I mean?
Right. No, he's great. I like him.
It's kind of hard to. That's one thing Anna taught me really well, is like there's like this energy meter, and you have to meet people in the middle of their energy. Like if they're down here and you're way up high, like puppy energy,
right,
like what you're doing is going to make no sense to someone who's feeling really chill. So,
Right.
You seem like you always maintain a pretty mellow mental headspace.
I try to. I think the older I get, the more I just want like no drama and I just want everything to be chill. So you kind of have to try to manifest that, I think, by just being chill.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you someone who kind of like internalizes, like holds in kind of your anxiousness? I mean, your Instagram handle is Instant Anxiety. Where'd you pull that from?
Right. I mean, I actually came up with that about like smoking weed, because I used to like smoke weed all the time, and now I barely ever do, because it's almost ever since weed became legal here, like it got too good, like it's too strong. And one time I just like took this little hit of weed and I was like, wow, instant anxiety. And I was like, why am I doing this? I was like so high, and I was like, didn't I already feel fine? I think I felt fine before this.
Right.
Why am I doing this to myself? But then definitely for social media too. Yeah, it can be anything. But yeah, you're like, oh, let's look on Instagram or Facebook or anything. And then you're just like instant anxiety. It's just like, you're kind of like overwhelmed. It's like you're overstimulated, or you just see some junk you don't want to see. And you're like, why am I doing this to myself?
Wow, that is a great analogy for social media right now. It is totally instant anxiety.
Yeah, it's hectic, right?
Did you play shows high?
Like a long time ago. Most of the thermal shows I did not. I get too in my head, I think.
Yep.
Or I get like too analytical about what's happening. I can't like stay in the moment if I smoke weed, because I'm too just conscious of just what's in my head, and I'll just think too much.
Yeah. I guess it works maybe if you're like a jam band, but you're like a very structured song band.
Or if I wasn't the singer, if you're in a band where you can just put on sunglasses and look at the floor, or just be conscious of only your instrument or something.
Yeah.
But you kind of have to like, I want to like make eye contact with the audience and like connect with the audience and look at people and kind of just like not feel. I feel like drugs like weed, it kind of puts like a wall between you and the audience.
Definitely, because you're in a different galaxy than the people watching you.
Totally.
Do you ever like, are you conscious to the point of like where you're like looking at people in the first or second row and you like catch some lady's grumpy face, and like, are you like, oh, is she having a good time? Does that get in your head ever, or is it just day to day?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times I would just end up thinking, well, that person looks so serious, or they look grumpy, but a lot of times they're just like actually like really paying attention and like enjoying, just because they're not smiling, it doesn't mean they're not enjoying the show. What would irritate me more is if someone's just front row and they're looking on their phone.
Brutal.
Like, it's fine if you want to look on your phone, but you should just be in the back. Like, what's the point of getting up front if you're just going to look on your phone?
Yeah, I think nothing offends me more than when like someone's visibly on their phone at a show.
Right. Well, it's distracting to you too, probably.
It's brutal. Yeah. And I'm someone who's already like kind of scanning the room to see like either can I play off this guy or this guy's banter, or are they having a good time? And like, that's just something that really crushes me. And I used to call people out on it in like kind of a mode of jest, but I never feel like I found out how to do it comfortably where the person wasn't completely offended and the room wasn't like, oh shit, that kind of thing. Did you ever have any banter or like go-to moves to shut down hecklers or anything? Was that ever a thing with you guys?
I mean, I don't really feel like we were ever heckled. One time at this festival in Germany, I did just pour a bottle of water on this dude's head because he wouldn't get off his phone. And seriously, like I was like talking to him and talking about it, and it was just like, but it was like a rowdy kind of crazy night, so it was okay to do it. And all his friends, once I poured the water on his head, his just friends were laughing, and he took it as a joke too. Like, he didn't get mad.
Yeah,
I still felt like a little mad after, but like everyone, they all thought it was funny, so it was fine.
That's brilliant. And I feel like, Germany, people are a little, I mean, the dudes are pretty chill in Germany. And if you did that in the States, if you did that in like a drunk Irish Chicago crowd, I mean, you might be in trouble, you know. Those crowds can get a little vicious, but
yeah, I mean, it's just, you know how a festival is too, and it's kind of just like you're playing. Some people are like your audience, but a lot of people are just walking from stage to stage, like, what's this? And so it's like a little loose. The vibe's a little looser, I think. Like, this was a show that was like, it was kind of this grungy old like athletic club that we were like, the audience was just in the pool, you know, like an empty swimming pool.
Nice.
And then we were playing above it. So it was like the right atmosphere, you know, to fuck with people that way.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Germany, I feel like, is one of the toughest crowds to read because people are so stoic there.
Right.
So you'll think everyone hates you, and then the line at the merch table will be like an hour long.
Right. They're analyzing your performance.
Yeah.
I would love, like, we love playing in Germany, but it was always the criticisms were always so specific. Like, dudes would come up to me and be like, I loved your show. Or no, they wouldn't say I loved. They'd say, I liked, good show. I liked your show. Your guitar tone was better last time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. That's huge with the German crowd. Or, you know, number 1 song, very good. Number 3 song, good. Number 5 song, very not good. Not good at all. Yeah.
Just brutal honesty.
Yeah, they must have no idea they're doing it.
I mean, I think you learn quickly not to take it personally. I think that's just how they are. But it's hard not to think about that later. And you'll be like, hey, I just rented this amp. I have very little control once I get over here of what I can do.
Right.
But yeah, they're just how they are.
Well, maybe Germany is like the last place to get true criticism, because I feel like in the States, people are too scared to give you straight criticism.
Right. Or maybe, yeah, it's the whole, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. No one told the Germans that. That's very American.
Do you have any like go-to people you send your arts or music to as like a filter? Because they'll give it to you straight and they won't give you bullshit for critiques?
Yeah, I feel like I have a couple friends. You know what's funny? When I send like recordings, like I've been working on some new recordings. I'm like halfway through a record right now that I've been recording like since the beginning of the year. And when I send it to my friends who don't play music, they'll just comment on like the emotional content, like the lyrics or just the vibe. And then when I send it to people I know who like do recording or like work at labels, they'll only talk from kind of like a business side of it, or like they'll talk about the tones and just like how the instruments sound, which makes perfect sense. But it's kind of nice to just like send it to get feedback from people who don't play music, because they're more like what like an average listener. Because you'll be like, does the snare need to be louder, or like are the guitars sound good? The average listener is just they're not dissecting the recording that way. They'll just be like, wow, those lyrics were really dark, because that's like what they're connecting to.
I agree with you, man. I think that is kind of the way to go, is like give it to people who are completely outside of the industry. Because if, you know, people that have been in the industry so long, their perception is scrambled, or there's maybe there's ego involved. Maybe there's, you know, it's just like, well, I know a lot of stuff, so I'm going to tell Hutch like it is. But did you hear that Joe Rogan podcast with Black Keys on it?
Oh no, was it recent?
It was like a year ago, but it was one of the best ones ever. And Arabach or Carney, the drummer, was saying, he's a fucking funny guy. He was saying how these labels would take their record and be like, oh yeah, we can't put this out unless the hi-hat's quieter. We can't. So they would just make a new bounce with a different name that said version 7, new lower hi-hat. And then they would send it to the label and they'd be like, okay, this version's better, even though it was the same.
It's the same bounce. One. That's genius. I love it.
Yeah. Did you ever run it? Did you ever meet those guys, Black Keys?
Yeah. We actually met them because they were good friends with Janet Weiss from Sleater-Kinney and Quasi, you know, who's from Portland. And so I met them through her. And then we saw them in England a couple times. And we hung out with Patrick. I love Patrick. He's really funny.
He's a comedian.
Yeah. He's an interesting guy.
Yeah, he needs to get a podcast going.
I know, right?
Didn't I feel like I asked you this when we recorded that album together in Oakland? I think I was bugging you to go on Portlandia or something. Didn't you get an offer to do it? Didn't you say you got an offer to be on?
Yeah, I had a couple offers, but I was just busy with the thermals both times.
So would you have done it if you were in town at the time?
Yeah, I probably would have done it. I mean, that first season, I didn't really realize what, like Fred and Carrie had this show called Thunder Ant before Portlandia. And it was just like on YouTube, I think. But it was just the same kind of thing. It was just sketches, like making fun of hipsters.
Yeah.
And so, but when they did I was kind of shocked when Portlandia came out because I was like, I didn't know you were going to call it Portlandia. And like, no one knew it was going to be this thing that was going to be like popular, but also really like, a lot of people were really annoyed by it. It definitely got like bigger and weirder than anyone thought it was going to be, I think.
Well, that show is so weird to get so popular, and I love that. And I feel like it's also such a civil service to like point out some of like this pretension in the world. Like, hey, I know you guys are trying to be arty and be, purveyors of arts and culture, but you're not being nice. You're being bullies. And they just painted that so perfectly in a relatively mainstream television show.
Right, and it like hit really close to home too, because I would call it a documentary sometimes. So I'd be like, this is too close to what life is like here.
How did you meet Carrie Brownstein? Is she from Portland?
They're all from Olympia, or she and Korn are from Olympia, and then she moved here 2002 or 3, I think. I just met her when I worked at Stumptown. What's
Stumptown? Is that a coffee place?
Coffee shop. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on. I remember her. She was in one of your earlier music.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Right. Yeah, she's great.
You still a coffee man? Man of the coffee?
No, I mean I drink coffee, but I'm not. I'm not crazy about it.
Do you remember our first time we met by chance? You might not remember this.
Was it in Milwaukee?
It was, I think it was in Chicago. It was probably 2010, and I was a little kid. I was 20. I don't even know if I could legally get in the show. I got into the show, and I was with my buddy Maloney, and I was like, this is kind of a dick move. I was like, Maloney, we're sneaking backstage. We got to do it. And we like went up the stairs, and I think you and I had some.
Square?
This was at I can't remember the name in Chicago. Old historic.
It was Logan Square, right?
Logan Square.
Backstage was
Upstairs Logan Square.
Right.
I would never do this in a million years now, but I think you and I had some correspondence on email or something. I was just like, fuck it, let's go meet the band. We snuck up there. You were so rad. I think you were a couple joints deep.
Oh,
and,
sure.
And I think you offered us a beer, and I was kind of pissing my pants. But I remember having a good hang up there. It was probably a good, healthy 20-minute hang, and I have no idea what we talked about. But I was like, this guy's like really personable, and it was a great honor.
Nice.
Do you have any notable fan interactions in your head that you were like, holy shit, I got to get out of here? Or like maybe any good stalker stories or anything like that?
I mean, it's not a fun story. We had this dude, I wouldn't call him a stalker. He came to all our shows. I mean, he basically like followed us on tour for like a while. This is probably like 2006 or 7, and he would just come to every single show, but he would always be like really pissed because there would always be a pit, and he just wanted to stand right up front and just like watch and like sing along. And every night I would look out, and he was just like, if anyone was like trying to like crowd surf or something, he was just like trying to throw him down. Just like, so it was like, I was like, this guy's our biggest fan, but I see him every night and he looks fucking pissed.
Did you ever see any of the mosh pits get out of hand? Did you have to kind of like coach the mosh pit into not killing each other?
There was, we played Beachland in Cleveland a bunch, and that's that definitely got out of hand like a lot. There was this crew of kids that would just bring glitter and shaving cream and like water guns. I forget. Like they had like just this arsenal of shit that they would bring, and the owner got super pissed because there were a couple shows where it was just trashed at the end of the night, and we had this guitar player who actually like broke, or I don't know what he did. He didn't break his leg, but he like sprained it or something. He was on like crutches the rest of the tour because he like slipped in shaving cream on when he was on stage. But all these kids came to like, they had totally planned it, but they had all like, they were all interspersed throughout the audience. They weren't just like clumped up one area. So just like, I forget what song, but all of a sudden we were just like bombarded with just like water and shaving cream and glitter and like confetti and all this shit. And it was just like coming at us from like all angles. But yeah, the owner, I forget what he did, but I remember seeing one of the girls in that group later at I don't know, like at another venue in Cleveland. And she was saying how like, just the owner of Beachland just hated all those kids.
Oh yeah, I mean,
making such a mess.
They were like the plant in the peaceful protest,
right?
You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's something, man. Cleveland's that's a tough town, man. That's hard-nosed people, hard-nosed
cool.
motherfuckers.
I like it. They're crazy there.
Yeah, I can see the Midwest really taking to your, meat and potatoes guitar rock very well.
Yeah, for sure. It's like the same way they love the Hold Steady, like out there. We did a bunch of shows with the Hold Steady, like in, like Detroit, Cleveland, Chicago. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, I think actually the first show I ever crowd surfed was at your show in Madison when I was a little guy. I did an interview with you when I was 20 years old.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Wait, not the Blind Pig. Where was it?
It was at the High Noon Saloon. I interviewed you for the Badger Herald.
Oh, right.
I remember just being so terrified to crowd surf because you watch it in movies, you hear about it, you see it at shows and metal shows, and kids get dropped and they get all fucked up. And then it's like I remember the anticipation of that. Like, okay, I'm going to crowd surf. I'm going to do it. And then doing it. Just what a liberating feeling.
Right.
Did you ever get dropped crowd surfing at a show or anything like that?
I mean, the shows I went to in high school were all like in Oakland or Berkeley or San Francisco, and it was all like Fishbone and Mr. Bungle and Primus, and those pits were fucking gnarly. Like those are pits where everyone's like losing shoes and clothes and getting knocked down and getting their ass kicked. Though I remember one time at Slim's, I don't know what, maybe like at a breeder's show, and I had like one of those hats like that John Frusciante had, where it was kind of like a ski cap that like ties. It's like with like ties under your chin.
Yeah.
And I like went up to stage dive, and this dude in the crowd just like grabbed me by the hat and like yanked me in, and then just like ripped the hat off and fucking stole it.
Good thing the hat ripped off. You would have got strangled.
I know, right?
Dude, what is up with mosh pits? I don't know if this is a metal thing or a hardcore thing, but what's up with people like beating the shit out of each other, punching each other in the face in a mosh pit?
Yeah, and you know what? That like the bigger shows like at like like the bigger Primus shows where there would just be like a circle pit. You'd always get a couple tough guys just in the middle, just kind of standing there and hitting people and pushing people as they ran by. Like, what are you doing? I mean, I guess it's kind of just like if you have all this anger inside and you want to hit people, it's just free reign. Like, no one's going to stop you. There's no security in the pit. There's no cops there. You can just fucking punch people and get away with it.
Jesus, it's like, dude, we all like the same band. What are we doing?
We all have something in common. We all like this band. Yeah.
There was something so much more savage about going to shows in the late 90s, maybe even early 2000s, where there was less security. There was, I remember there never being air conditioning at a venue.
No, yeah.
So that must be a new development, huh? Like just tweaking the venues to not be so primal.
I mean, I haven't been to like an arena show or like a stadium show in like 20 years, I don't think. Like, I kind of don't really want to. Like, I don't miss it now. I don't love like a crowd that big anyway, but it was fun back then. And it was cool. I mean, there was like a kind of dangerous element to it that like makes it exciting, I think.
Yeah, I remember being at like seeing a show at the Marcus Amphitheater and like dudes like starting bonfires on the lawn. Like,
That is crazy. Like what would be the artist or what would be the band playing?
oh man. I mean, I feel like it might have been Blink 182, but maybe that doesn't add up. Maybe, I mean, I guess you have a lot of high school delinquents going to see them.
Yeah, yeah.
It could have
That's
been
so
them.
crazy. Yeah.
I always really appreciated their penis humor, even though they were like in their 30s at the time.
Right.
But it worked, and they're still doing the same thing. It's a little bit hard to watch.
Yeah, it's weird. You can just do that for your whole life.
I guess you just hammer at a formula, and now it's the
Right.
era of data where like if you're down to really use the data on a major scale and you got the money to harvest it, you can just fucking hammer at the formula.
Right. Right.
Yeah, I don't know. But in a little bit of a way, it seems like those days are kind of gone where just like one entire demographic of everyone your age likes the same band. You know, it's all like little fragmented now.
Right. I mean, it seems like I was trying just the other day. I was trying to like think of like what was the last, who could fill an arena, and it seemed like DJs. I don't know if they still could, but like people like Skrillex, were definitely filling like massive arenas and stuff. But it's not the same as seeing a band. But maybe I never went to any of those shows. Maybe it is. It's just like a bunch of people getting fucked up and slamming against each other and listening to music.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a different job to be a DJ. I think you're there to just be like more of a party captain.
Right.
Maybe, but I don't know. I'm not qualified to answer that even. I don't.
Yeah, me neither. Yeah.
Is Skrillex like are people like there for the songs? I feel like they're there for the party, and they know like every fourth guy is gonna have LSD.
Right. Yeah. So maybe it's more like a Dead show like that. You're really just there first to do drugs and maybe get laid later, and then there's also music.
Yeah, that would make sense. I mean, I've only tried psychedelics more recently in my life.
Oh yeah.
But there's like, and the best thing ever to do, and that is listen to music. And there's things that all of a sudden start to make sense when you're like, oh, I hated that band, and now that makes all the sense in the world.
Right.
Yeah.
How did you find it? Did you like doing psychedelics?
For mostly a net gain. I feel like I've maybe tried them 12 times in my whole life, and I've talked about every experience on the podcast. So people probably think I'm a drug addict. 12 for 12, batting 1,000. But yeah, I've had, I mean, I'm not really a party guy. I don't like go out and rave. I don't drink hard. So like I'm doing them to be either productive creatively, just get out of my head and just have a kind of a peaceful, hopefully learn a few things, have a net gain mentally and emotionally. So I've had some wobbly trips for sure, but I'm probably like 9 for 12, which I feel like is pretty good.
That's pretty good. Yeah.
Have you had any like really notable meltdown psychedelic experiences, or perhaps on the other side, really profound?
They're usually pretty profound. I think I went camping with a couple of my friends like a year ago, or maybe like a year ago last summer, and I probably hadn't done acid for like 20 years, I don't think. Maybe longer. Maybe it was like 96. Because I graduated high school in 93, and most of the acid I did was like in high school or like right after. And so I hadn't done it, and it was great. It was really cool, but it was just the three of us. I always feel like it just matters like who you're with, where you are. And we were just in the forest. We were like an hour outside Portland, kind of by Mount Hood, just in the forest camping. We had a fire, like just listen to music the whole time. I was surprised. I was like, I can't believe, because I had done acid a lot back in the day, but I had never been in the forest. So it just seems like the perfect place to do it. But yeah, it was super positive. But then after that, I was like, that was great. I probably don't need to do it for another 20 years.
Yeah, I hear that. And I think I don't feel like I'm qualified to give any real advice on LSD, but I think the one piece of advice anyone would give is that pre-production is everything. Like you got to set up the space. You got to have the blanket, get the candles, make sure you're not around any punishers or people who you're not comfortable with, and just like, just do it, be cozy. And then I've never had a bad trip when the pre-production was all there.
Right. And it's definitely pre-production, because you can't be like an hour or two into the trip and be like, okay, now we're going to set up stuff. Because you're like, you can everything's melting.
Yeah, find the candles, bro. I can't find them. And then that's a whole meltdown in itself.
Right. You're like looking for candles for 2 hours.
I remember eating a bunch of mushrooms at Bonnaroo the first time I ever did mushrooms, and just having a complete meltdown. And I was there to write for this blog. So I went to the media tent, just blasted. I left the media tent and I was like, did I just meet Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? And I was like, no. And I looked at the program and I met Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He was in the media tent, this 8-foot guy. Yep. Crazy. So, but that was horrible. I mean, I sat next to my car and sweated and cried for 8 hours.
Fuck.
Just thought about every horrible thing I've ever done and doubled down on it, you know?
Right.
Oh, but I do feel like, I mean, I have, friends and, even maybe a few relatives where I feel like, God, I got to get them to try some mushrooms for their own benefit. Because at a certain point, I feel like therapy maybe just isn't going to hack it.
We voted in Oregon this year to, I don't know if you'd say legalize, but for the use of psilocybin in therapy. So hopefully that'll pass.
That'll be huge.
They've gotten, I know in studies, like it's supposed to be so therapeutic. It's just really helpful. And I actually saw another thing on MDMA being used in the same thing. You just kind of have like a guided trip from like a doctor or some kind of professional. And a lot of it is for PTSD.
Yep. I love it, man. I could see Portland going real hard left and just being like, all right, if you want to enter politics, you have to do mushrooms at least twice.
Right.
You guys are at the forefront of that stuff.
Yeah.
So every time I talk to you, I feel like you've got a new project you're working on. For a while, you were doing stand-up. Then you were producing some records. We worked on a record together. Right. What's kind of your new obsession at the moment outside of music?
I've just gotten back into recording my own, I guess this isn't outside of music, but just I hadn't just tracked my own record at home alone, for 15 years or something. So I just got back into I have just a 1/2-inch 8-track that I have just right in here. I've been tracking to tape and then dumping it to Pro Tools. So that's been cool because I worked with you at Bose, but then mostly I was working with Victor Nash here in Portland.
Right.
And I got into this before lockdown, but just it was kind of a good timing because very few studios, almost no one's doing studio stuff here. So it was the perfect time for me to just get into a project that I could do all alone.
Sure.
Without leaving the house.
Man, I'm really surprised you stopped doing stand-up because I feel like you are fucking really onto something.
I might get back into it. I definitely miss it. It's another thing you're gonna have to wait for stuff to start up again. But yeah, there's definitely ideas that I'll get where I'm like, yeah, I should go do that on stage. I mean, that's what I like about stand-up is you could just all you need is a few ideas. If you're just gonna go do 5 minutes, go do a mic. Yeah, you just need a couple ideas. How
do I get the guts to do that? I have no sack to go stand up there by myself.
I think you just have to make yourself do it. There were a few years where I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And then I just didn't do it. And then finally, when I made myself do it, it felt great. I think, it's so worth it. And you just have to force yourself to do it.
So was the first time, did you just bomb hard or was it solid?
No, I did all right. Nice. It was at a Moose Lodge in Portland. It was just it was kind of just this kind of just rundown Moose Lodge. It wasn't it was an audience there, but it wasn't like a comedy club audience. It was just people that go to the Moose Lodge and do Jello shots and just are old and weird.
Holy shit.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I feel like that's that's a tricky thing because I know a lot of comedy open mics, you can just be performing to like 10 other comics, which I think is brutal. I mean, that would.
Yeah, because even if they like your jokes, they're like purposely not laughing because they don't want to give you the satisfaction.
Right. Well, I know you use Twitter as a form of joke writing. It seems like to test out jokes. Dude, your Twitter is hilarious.
Thanks, dude.
Is that always kind of like your first acid test for a joke to see how it does on Twitter, typing it out?
Kind of, but it's so different when you're in front of people because just there are some things that you have to read for it to be funny, and there are some things when you say it out loud, it's just not. I don't know. For me, like if I had a joke that I thought was funny, even if people wouldn't laugh, I would still continue to do that joke just because I thought it was funny.
Right. Yeah.
You gotta kind of have an arrogance to it. I mean, a lot of the comedians I like are kind of have like an arrogance, where if you like what you're doing, like fuck everyone if they don't understand it.
Right. Is there who's kind of your comedic influences? I
mean, Chris Rock is he's my favorite comedian for sure, like of all time. But his jokes are so well written and and his delivery is just so specific and it's so dialed in. It's just, I love people like that who, because he's done a ton of movies and TV, but he still does stand-up specials. I love people, Chappelle too, like people who are just like, I'm a stand-up comedian for life. And they're just like dedicated to it.
So give me a little bit of advice, Hutch Harris. What is like, this is a cliche question, but what's like your process? Are you, for comedy writing, are you literally sitting down for 2 hours writing out jokes on paper? Or are you just kind of doubling down and observing the world and writing of things as you think of them?
I would definitely write stuff down. It's usually like if I thought of something, I would write it down. I wasn't like sitting down to like think of ideas. It's more like I was sitting down and writing to collect all the ideas in one place, just because I just like to have stuff organized that way. The same thing with like writing lyrics for a song. You kind of just like it. And I also just think like writing it out helps you kind of see where the mistakes are and helps you like rewrite it.
Yep. I love that challenge of doing something weird and tough outside of music, because I feel like I've done music our whole lives. Like writing songs is, not to sound arrogant, but it's like that's just comes kind of easy at this point.
Right.
So like I love the idea of just like going on stage for 5 minutes and totally bombing. And
dude, the thing is, like, even if you bomb, it's such like a visceral experience. Like it'll make the hair stand up on your neck just because it's so like crazy. It's one of those things that like if it goes really well, it's great, and if it goes really bad, it's great too, because it's just like so interesting and it's so different from how you feel playing music on stage, I think.
So is bombing like, do you walk away from that experience like being like, wow, that was a rush, and you like, wow, that was a great net gain, or are you like crushed for the whole day?
I wouldn't be. The thing was, like, I would always be so nervous to do stand-up that as long as it was over, I would feel great. So if I went up there and it was great, I would be like, okay, that feels really good. But then if I went up there and I wasn't any good, or it bombed, I was like, well, I'm still done with it. And so all that, like, you still have that release of tension and like nerves. So yeah, there was no time when I like regretted doing stand-up. Like, even if it went bad, I would still be like, that was cool, and it's just like, if you can kind of laugh at yourself and just be like, wow, I sucked. That's fine.
Did you also have the same anticipation anxiety before a gig, or is that just a stand-up anxiety?
I like used to, and then I kind of like grew out of it, I think.
Yeah, man. I have that with like everything in life these days. I don't know what you would call it. Anticipation anxiety. It's not like I'm nervous to play. I know I'm going to be fine. I'll play well, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, even like if I got to go to a meeting with someone I'm comfortable with, it's like this anticipation anxiety of like, oh, I got to do the thing.
No, I totally feel that. I think there's like a Larry David joke about it. He says like anytime like anything gets canceled at all, you're just glad because like, yeah, even if it's something you're looking forward to, you're like, oh, so relieved that you don't have to do that.
Does everyone have that?
I don't know if everyone does. I think it's so weird that like, I knew so many comedians that had like such intense anxiety, and it didn't seem like going on stage was helping their anxiety at all.
Right.
So it was
right.
like kind of just like perpetuating it.
It seems like an uncomfortable life to have a brain of a comedian, but I love it.
Yeah, I mean, you meet a lot of interesting people for sure.
Yeah. Well, this has been great, man. We've been riffing a long time. When's the Thermals reunion happening?
I don't. How long is it? It's only been like 3 years, so I don't know. A couple more years.
Nice. Was it a publicity stunt
Yeah,
to
totally.
break up?
Oh yeah. You got to break up just so you can come back.
I love it. I love the honesty. That's genius. Cool, man. Tell people where they can find you if you're working on any projects you want to share at the moment.
Best place for me is just my Bandcamp. So just hutchharris.bandcamp.com, because that's where I've been putting like new stuff and old stuff up there.
Beautiful, man. Well, I love you. Thanks for coming on and talking. You're one of my all-time favorites and one of my musical heroes.
Dude, thanks so much, Brett.